Welcome back to the Running Wine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Solinsky, aka the Running Wine Mom. Today we have a very special guest joining us, Cathy Pedrayes, known as TikTok's mom friend. She's a social media influencer who has made a name for herself by sharing essential everyday safety and security tips. With a background that includes a stint on QVC and a wealth of practical advice, Cathy and I met at Consumer Reports, and she is here to share her insights and stories. So without further ado, let's learn how to stay safe in our daily lives with Cathy. Welcome, Cathy.
Thanks so much for having me, Sam.
Yes, and it was so fun meeting you. We went to Consumer Reports, and we had such a great day there. They have so much great things to learn, and I always think specifically about the dishwasher, not washing our dishwasher or our dishes before going in, which is
I still like pre-rinse a couple things, and every single time I think about that trip, but there's certain things that just stick, the ketchup, the starchy water from pasta. But I do think about that trip.
It was funny. My dad and I just had the conversation about it because, like I was saying, we're down the shore right now, and I started like trying to put the stuff in by not completely washing it. He's like, "You got to wash it all off." I'm like, "Well, at Consumer Reports, they said."
It's true. I've been posting videos from that day, by the way.
I know, same. I really am the same. I posted the laundry one, and then I was like, there's so many other great things that I have like that I need to get to. But yeah, that was a fun day. So to start each episode, we start with our wine, and wit of the week segment. This is where we share our favorite bottle of wine, vent about something that has been bothering us, and celebrate our recent victory. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. All right, Cathy, what is your WINE of the week?
So my favorite wine?
Yes. Or drink, if you have like a favorite cocktail or non-alcoholic.
Yes. I do have a favorite. I mean, I like ice wine, but it's just very, very sweet and not something you can drink a lot of unless you have a raging headache. But my favorite drink overall is a French 75 with gin.
Oh,
the original way of doing it.
That's a good one.
And a little Saint Germain.
Oh, nice. Perfect. I love that. I haven't had one of those in a very long time.
They're my go-to. I love them.
And what is your WHINE of the week?
You know what? I'm a little annoyed with like some of the stuff some influencers are posting right now where I'm like, that's wrong information.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta like film a whole bunch of corrections because people don't bother to take 2 seconds to Google something.
Right.
They give bad safety information, which is that obviously you could give bad, I don't know, how to make a grilled cheese sandwich, and you could tell someone the wrong steps and it's not really a big deal. But safety information having to do with like car seats and stuff like that is a little annoying. So,
yeah.
This morning I got a DM about it as I was getting ready, and I'm like, this is annoying. This girl is annoying.
I just saw something with, it was like putting a rubber band at the bottom of the car. I just thought of it when you were saying car seat, at like the bottom of the car seat to help you loop it better or something. And it was something like so simple, but also I was like, you're never supposed to add anything on. It's like, it was like a car seat hack. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not supposed to add anything on. And so then there's all these people that are like, oh, maybe I'll try this. And it's like,
I think the only rubber band situation that is probably okay is like when you're rear facing and you have that long tether strap.
Right.
Like swinging around the car.
Yeah.
So like it usually comes out of the box. Like if you have one of those convertible car seats, it usually comes out of the box like rubber band. Other than that, I do not know why you would need a rubber band for anything else.
Yeah, it was really, I'll have to find the video and send it if I can find it and send it, but it was just but I'm sure you get super frustrated with like, you're like, this is not correct. People are
another wine.
Yeah. So what is your win of the week?
Well, I have a big trip coming up. I'm headed to LA in a couple of days
to
fun. Big project with TikTok. So I'm excited about that. I'm not excited. I'm going to be leaving my kids for almost 2 weeks. So I'm not excited about that. I wanted to bring them with me, but I'm literally working from like 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. with just a couple hours break in between.
Right.
So all they're going to be doing is sitting in a hotel room. Like I can't even go out with that,
Right.
So we were like, it's more comfortable for them if they're at home with their family. We have grandparents visiting, their niece, like cousins are back from summer camp and stuff like that. And, aunts back from vacation. So like back home, they've got, 8 adults around them to play with. And the alternative is sitting in a hotel. So, I mean, it's a win for me work wise, a little annoying, maybe a wine.
Yeah, I know the mom guilt with working is so real, and really though, I feel as though we feel it more than our kids do, where of course they'll miss you, but like they're gonna be having so much fun, like you just said, with family and
Yeah.
cousins, and by the time you get back, they're gonna be like, "Oh, what? We had so much fun."
The tough part is bedtime because I
Oh
do
yeah,
stories generally. So I'm just gonna like pre-record some
yeah.
story times and
Oh,
then like
that's perfect.
text it to my husband. He could play it
Yeah,
from his phone. I wish I had one of those Tony things that you
that
just
yeah.
pull. But anyways, I don't have one.
It's all right. I with technology, we're so lucky to be able to, FaceTime or record a video
Mhm.
to send to them, and they can see. My sister travels a lot for work, and that's a lot of the stuff that she does. So it's nice to have that option, which is, good for the kids to be able to see all the time.
It's true.
I always like to ask my guests, what is one significant challenge you've successfully navigated shaping your journey to where you are today?
I think there's always a challenge like every
Yeah,
day.
there really is.
I mean, I guess a big one would be, maybe like a lack of inspiration sometimes or like burnout. I go through these moods, right? Where a slump, I'll say, where like you're like, I don't know what to post, like nothing matters, nothing's getting me excited, nothing whatever. And then I go through these, I guess, peaks, which I'm kind of in right now, where there's so much I want to talk about, but I'm like the algorithm will not let me post 6 videos a day. Like
Right.
gonna hurt my account.
Yeah.
So anyways, so I think that's, I don't know that I've navigated it, but considering that like 3-4 years later I'm still doing it, I guess that speaks for itself and that
Yeah.
it's somehow working.
No, yeah, that's amazing. And I feel as though like sometimes I feel the same way where you're like, okay, I have these like three ideas and I want to post them all today. And you're like, no, you just have to post them over a few days. So I have to literally write down like, even if it's not a part of my content calendar, like when, okay, you put it here and then you're like, okay, I have it. It's there. It'll be there. The world will see it. But it's hard to not want to post it all when you're excited about something.
Yeah, I don't have a content calendar.
Oh my gosh.
I just literally will be like, what do I feel like talking about today? Unless I like am in a mode right now.
Right.
I have so much. So, for example, it's kind of back to school time. I had all these back to school videos planned about backpack, about blind
Right.
spots with SUVs, which I've done before. But then there was that tragic story in the news with the 12-year-old girl. So, well, not tragic because she seems to be okay. But
Oh, good.
yeah. But anyway, but still like okay, it's still tragedy. But anyhow, so I had that, but then there was this big data breach, and now like
Ugh,
people are asking me all of
gosh.
that stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to push back the back to
Yeah.
school stuff because this seems to be more important at this moment, so that kind of thing.
Right. I know. When I saw that last night, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder what you're going to say about that because that's kind of crazy. And I've seen like some funny things. People are like, nobody even cares because we're already, like as a joke, like the way that, the world is kind of going today. But then I'm like, no, but really, like, what the heck are you supposed to do?
I know. It's kind of like a little bit of both because
Right.
data breaches happen like that all the time. Colleges get, hacked and they have your social security information. I'm pretty sure the government has
Yeah.
also been breached.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, like not that long ago. So yeah, so it happens a bunch and it depends how the criminal decides to use it. The
Yeah.
worst case scenario would be opening accounts in your name. And then I don't want to say best case scenario because this is probably the most effective, but using that information to like social engineer scams
Yeah. Yeah.
is, I mean,
Probably. Yeah.
very profitable.
Right. Gosh. All right. So before we get more into all of that, the running wine mom, we start off with a little fitness. So what is your favorite way to stay active?
So you know what I've been doing recently? I first of all I just started going back to the gym, so it's been like a week. But
That's awesome. That's great.
but I saw a TikTok of a guy raving about girls on the Stairmaster and like
Okay.
how I don't know, like how it should be considered torture and like all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? The Stairmaster is pretty good. So I've been just for like 5 minutes before my workout using that as a warm up. Also I have a harder time running because I don't know, I did something to my left knee years ago. And so I have to be like really careful. But yeah, so the Stairmaster is like my fun way. It's not that fun, but a
I was
quick
like, fun? It is
yeah,
not fun.
to warm up, and I also feel like I'm working the glutes, you know?
Oh yeah, it's such a good one. My dad actually is very big into hiking. And he would when he was training for he did the base camp of Everest, he did Kilimanjaro like in the last 6 or 7 years, but he would literally just put like a rucksack on and do the Stairmaster for like hours and hours to train. And I like remember going on the Stairmaster one time, I was like, oh, my dad could do it. Like I could go on after 5 minutes. I'm like, get me off of this thing. And I don't even have the extra weight on. So,
Yeah. One day I did it up to 6 minutes and I was
oh
like,
my,
"Ooh, I'm improving."
yeah, that's good. How does maintaining your fitness routine contribute to your relationship between mental health and physical health?
I mean, well, so this is kind of like a complicated question at the moment
Right,
because so I'm postpartum, like two babies, and I had like because they were back to back,
right,
and and I had obviously put on weight as you do with kids, and then it becomes I was able to get like most of the like actual baby stuff off, but then I had like these extra 20 pounds that I just couldn't get off, and so not that I was working out that hard, but I was going for like walks for like an hour a day and all of
right,
that kind of stuff. It's hard when you have a newborn and a 2 year old. You know, I had two under two. So it's
right.
really hard to like get out and work out. But anyway, so I cheated and I did like the generic version of Ozempic.
Okay, that's not cheating.
Well, I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe. it,
it got
maybe
you
it was like,
boost.
yeah, right. It was a boost. So I got those 20 pounds off and then it became easier to work out. I mean, okay, and I'm not like promoting the drug. I didn't have any side effects and I, went to doctors and all that stuff. But it did become easier to work out because, well, one, I felt better about myself. I felt
Yeah,
like I had a motivation of like, okay, now I need to maintain this because now I'm in the process of weaning off. My goal is not to, stay on it forever.
right.
Mm, but anyway, so it gave me like that motivation and then also that extra weight off made it easier
To
to
work
work
out.
out.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
my heart rate is so much more stable,
right.
right? So yeah, so it's a weird question to ask, but I feel like right now I'm feeling really good about myself and everything because I'm back at the weight I was
Pre
before I had my first, and so my clothes fit in my closet again.
Yeah, that's good. That is such a motivation, and it's great for your mental health. And I actually had a guest on in I think the beginning of July, and she was a nutritionist, registered dietitian, who was very much positive in the GLP-1 area because you hear a lot of negative things about it. And she just talked about like there are, of course, there's bad side effects, but people are focusing on them rather than the positive side effects that are happening because of it. Like, people who are losing this weight, now there's not as many heart issues or the stress on, your knees because you're losing this weight. So I think it's something that if you're, it's not going to be a crutch forever. And you were that weight before you had your babies. So it's not like
Right,
you're trying to lose this 5 pounds that you were never able to lose in your life. You were just
right.
getting back to where you were. So,
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was not going to replace my entire closet. That would have cost me $1 million.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it has, it has been good, and luckily I didn't have any
Side
bad
effects.
side effects or anything like that. So
That's
it's
awesome.
been easy for me. But
Good. Um, so the next thing is parenthood. And I always ask my guests, tell us about your family.
so I have a 2.5-year-old. He's the oldest, the boy, and then I have a 1-year-old. She just turned
Oh,
like a week ago.
oh, that's awesome.
And then of course my husband, and we have an au pair.
Okay.
And for the summer we have grandparents that live with us too.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
then they go back to Florida.
Oh,
Snowbird
cool.
situation.
Yeah. Love that.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
The kids are great, and I think like I'm really lucky in that my 2-year-old or 2.5, he doesn't really have like terrible twos kind of moments.
Right.
Moments, yes, but it's not like a pattern thing, a
Uh-huh.
larger pattern. So I'm pretty lucky in that I think the kids are generally pretty easy. My daughter's a little bit more feisty. She's a little bit more of like a Velcro baby, she's a little bit more independent, a little more, she doesn't want to be, she's a little more like, no, I'll do it, even 1 years old. So she's a little bit more feisty. But even then, I'm just like,
It's
this is
fun.
how it's gonna be. Like, I need to put you down so I could cook you food now. Sorry.
Right. I know, like, I wonder if it's like the second child because my daughter, it seems really similar in the way you're just explaining it. Willow's like independent, but in a good way. She, does everything. She's a rule follower. And then Parker is just like the opposite. Like Willow never had terrible twos. She didn't like and Parker is in his twos and he's just a little, it's different than, but still awesome. Like it's just, you're in
Yeah.
the thick of it right now. And that's,
We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I can't complain. She eats well. She won't try new foods. I mean,
right,
try new foods, but she won't let you like feed her. If she doesn't feel like eating, she doesn't feel like eating.
right.
But she eats well, sleeps well. So like,
Awesome.
yeah, that's
That's
really
all.
the two important things you can have. And she'll go in a car seat without fighting.
Oh, there you go.
Top three things.
That's a win. What do you think you were least prepared for in parenthood?
Maybe the lack of sleep, especially in the beginning. But actually, I don't even know because I used to work overnights. And so I
So,
work from 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. And so my sleep schedule has always kind of been all over the place. My productivity did drop a lot because I was just sleeping at odd times. And then when
right.
I was awake, kids were awake. So I was with them. Um, but maybe the sleep situation. I think I was a little prepared because I worked overnights, but it was slightly more extreme.
Yeah. And that's like, you sound like my husband because his schedule, he's shift work. So he's 2 weeks of overnights, 2 weeks of day works, but he was fine. He was much, I won't say fine, similar to what you're saying. He was much more adjusted than I was to getting weird hours of sleep. With Willow, it was just really hard because I was like, what the heck? I've never experienced this. I'm very much like routine sleeper.
I've
But
never had a routine ever since I was a little kid. Never had a
right.
bedtime, so I guess that's the benefit.
Oh. And what is your parenting style?
Think I'm a gentle parent. I think so. I'm not permissive though. And I have found that trying to reason with the kids seem to work, even
Right.
though I know they have no clue what I'm saying. My daughter's a little different. She's one, she doesn't care. But my 2.5-year-old, he would scream that he wants something, and I'd be like, no, sorry, you can't have it. This one is dangerous. Let's do this instead. Or I try not to say no too often. I'll be
Right.
like, we can't do this right now, but we could do this, or we could do it in a few minutes, or whatever. And it seemed like the more I talk, I know he has no idea, or not no idea, but he's not fully grasping everything. But it just seems to like confuse, I don't know, distract
Right.
him from whatever happened. It seems to work. I'll let you know if that works with my daughter. I don't know.
I think it's like giving them that when you give them the choice, they think that they're still in charge, which is what they want in general, is to be making the choices and with all of that. So I do think that I distractions is like I think the only reason I'm surviving parenting, and I don't know, like distractions and choices. So I think there's something to it.
Yeah, I also try to say yes to as much as possible. I like, sometimes like he did have a moment where he wanted to brush his teeth. He wanted to turn on and off the lights. He wanted to get his pajamas. It only lasted like a week or two.
Right.
Um, but it slows you down when you're trying to do bedtime and whatever. But I was just like, I don't know, what's the big
Yeah.
deal? Let me go to bed later. At that time, he wasn't in school or anything, so it was just like whatever.
Yeah, whatever. And what is one piece of advice that you would give to other parents?
I guess just talk a lot, and they seem to do what you say. I also, one thing that I'm being really conscious of now, and I'm like teaching my husband to do the same, is to not blame things on the second child. Like, oh, we can't do this right now because I'm holding baby
Yeah.
you or whatever. I'm like, don't blame things on her. I don't know if there's any theory behind this, but it just seems like it's setting up a dynamic. So I just say like, just tell him I can't do it right now, or, whatever. Give another reason that doesn't involve her name. Like,
Right.
just say the reason I'm busy right now, but you don't have to say I'm busy right now because I'm holding the baby. Just I'm busy right now. Give me 2 minutes or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I read there was something where it was like when you bring like the second baby home, even when they're little, is to balance that off, is not to like not the blaming thing of like, or but you could say the same things to the baby even though they have no idea what you're saying, but the older one kind of understands where you're like, no, I can't pick you up right now because I'm playing with, this one. And I try to do that like randomly and I'm like, this is so bizarre, but I think like there is something to it where you're not constantly like to the older one, no, I can't do it because of the little one. You say to the little one, no, I can't do this because of the older one, and they kind of feel like a balance, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And they're pretty good as siblings. Like they're getting to the age where they play together. You know, he
Right.
rides a little balance bike around the house,
Aw,
it's her walker, and they chase each other. For me,
that's
that's
okay.
great. I'm like, use up the energy, and also it's easy for me to just watch them from one place.
Right. Yeah, they do. It gets because mine are same age difference as yours, but Willow's 3.5, Parker's 2, and they finally in the last like probably 3 months, everyone kept saying, "Oh, they'll be best friends playing together," and I'm like, "Yeah, I saw them playing together, but like not the way that I imagined it." And now it's really nice because they can have like little conversations and they have this little friendship, which is what everybody kind of said, and finally happened.
Yeah, we'll see how long,
Yeah.
still in the early stages. So I don't know
Yeah.
what's a moment versus a pattern versus,
Right.
we'll see.
Awesome. All right, so let's get into you and what you do. So, can you tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a social media influencer focused on safety and security tips?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like everybody else probably that's big on TikTok, it just started with posting videos on TikTok. And at first I was just doing trends and stuff, but then there was like this random things trend. And one of the random things videos that I did was about like things I keep in my safety and my first aid kit that are unusual. And it was because I had taken like a really intense first aid course. That's like the kind of course that first responders take. It was like in college. So it was like 4 months or whatever. So there were things like, oh, a paper cup, or, I was saying how I keep things for diabetics, like even though nobody in my family is diabetic, like little sugar boost packets and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So anyways, so then from there I started posting like more safety stuff. I had posted other stuff too, but I realized that what people cared more about was the safety stuff. So then I started sharing some of the things I had learned at work because, as you mentioned, I used to be a host on national TV, and we had the data privacy stuff was a real issue there because with live TV, this weird thing happens where people feel like they really have a relationship with you, but it's
Hmm.
totally one-sided.
Right.
So they don't, then when they see you in real life, sometimes they're just being friendly, sometimes they're being creepy. It's kind of hard to tell as the person on the receiving end of that. So, we had issues where people would show up to people's houses or send letters.
Oh,
Sometimes it was
geez.
threatening, sometimes it was friendly, but the friendly even comes off as threatening when you don't know who's on the other side of it. And so I started learning more. And we also had people at work, that used to work for like the government and stuff like that trained us on like best practices. But as a result, I started learning more about how this data is public to begin with, and how come this is a problem. Why do they know where I live? Like that kind of
Right.
thing. And it took me down the rabbit hole of like the data privacy, data security stuff. And then I guess I'm an expert in the same way that like a journalist is an expert, right? Like I'm just like so embedded in the space and talking to so many people that I've developed an expertise in that space.
That's awesome. And then you have your blue dress, and you have where did that come from?
So that was when I first started posting videos, I was trying, I don't know, I had like developed a bit of a character where I was trying to be kind of Stepford mom-ish and giving tips. And I used to wear my hair in like a bun too, which was terrible because I've never been able to actually do a bun. I don't know. But basically what happened was my grandma, she passed away a month after I had started posting, but the pearls were kind of like a nod to her. And I
Oh,
wanted to come up with an outfit that incorporated that. And so the dress I just picked because I thought it was a good color with the pearls. I thought it looked like casual enough, but formal enough, whatever. And then she was somebody who was more like, I don't know, she died at 98 years old, right? Like it was a different
wow.
era of fashion. And so she was somebody who liked more of like the fit and flare kind of dresses and that style, that like old school style. So it was kind of my take on it. And that's why I used to wear my hair up too, because it was just me
Yeah.
incorporating that. And then, and then it just became like more casual and kind of became my thing.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, when we met, well, I said like I love that color. I love that color blue,
It's
and I
a
was
great
thinking,
color.
yeah, I was like, oh wow, her dress is so pretty, and I did not follow you on any, platforms at the time, and then I'm like, wait, oh my gosh, this is her thing. This is so cool. I love this about, like, and also it's nice because you don't have to figure out like what you're wearing for anything. Like a
Oh,
uniform is great.
it's such a blessing. And this was not a dress that I bought for videos. I had it for years. And then
Right.
I got more off of like Poshmark and stuff. But it's actually like I feel so bad for like fashion influencers or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so much pressure of like, what's the trend? What do I wear? Like, I feel like, and this was just chance, but I got lucky in that I have a dress that's like a really nice fabric, so I can wear it in professional. It is open back a little bit, so, but I can wear it in professional settings. I've worn it to NATO. Like, I could wear
Oh
it in
yeah.
settings, but it also is casual because it's just a skater dress. Like, not a, you could, dress it up,
Yeah.
dress it down, like and the fabric is not like a wrinkly fabric. I mean, that was just chance, but I just happened to pick a good dress.
Yeah, no, that's so true because like you're saying, so it's like people when they see you, you have to wearing them to these important events is important and for them to recognize you, I think. And that's just cool that you can dress it up or down, which is great.
I did have a one time, well, being pregnant, obviously the dress didn't fit. Back to we were talking. So I had some alternative dresses which were similar color. But one time I was doing a keynote speaking event for the Better Business Bureau, and I was like, well, I'm going to try to wear something a little different. I put like a sparkly blue blazer, light blue though, and people were very disappointed that I didn't have the dress on. So I was like, don't worry, I'm going to come back tomorrow with the dress. So
Oh
then
my
I
gosh.
did, and I came back to the second day of their conference, which, I had no obligation to be there for, just to take pictures with the dress.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That is really cool. That's such a so probably something that you maybe did not think about for the future that you're just
Well,
like, oh, I'm just gonna wear this dress and now it's like you. That's
yeah.
what people
Lesson learned. Like,
yeah.
I'm not switching up the outfits.
Yeah, and it's good that you know, got all the quality of it, so that's great.
Yeah.
So do you think being on QVC influenced you to be able to kind of transition into social media a little bit easier, or do you think that you took any skills from QVC when you were posting or any of that because they're two totally different things, but also
Yeah.
in media?
I think what it gave me was the confidence because I always liked social media. I was studying, digital journalism and stuff like that before I was at QVC. The problem was I didn't feel like I had anything to talk about, or like I felt like narcissistic if I
Mhm.
posted something or whatever. So I kind of just used social media, the way everybody else did, maybe posting that you went on a date that night or
Mhm.
your birthday or whatever. But I felt like posting anything else. I don't know. But this was also early stages of social media, so maybe it was different. But I just felt like I didn't have a right to do that.
Right.
And being on QVC, suddenly it gave me an excuse like, oh, it's not just me talking about myself, but now I work for this place where I get to try new products and whatever. And so it just gave me the confidence and also the validation of somebody because I started working there without any television experience. So it gave me the validation of somebody saying, oh, we think you're good enough for this. And that was also like a confidence boost. But in terms of the skills, it's totally, I guess live TV could be a little similar, but it's different.
Yeah, yeah, I was wondering if there was any like correlation between the two. And can you tell us how you earned the title of TikTok Mom Friends?
Oh, that started it was in the comments. And honestly, I used to even start videos being like, hey, it's the mom friend of the group and whatever. And I kind of stopped doing it. I should go back to that because I think it's such a nod to 2020 that I think people
Mhm.
have forgotten where that came
Yeah.
from. But I didn't give myself that name. It was the comments were like, "Oh, she's the mom friend of the group," because I was talking about things I carry with me for safety, for whatever. And it wasn't mom friend like biological mom. It was like the girl in the group, the friend who's like, you need the extra snack. She's got the snack. She's got the bottles of water. And it was so I didn't even know what a mom friend was before that, but it was so true to me and like how I
Right.
had been in high school. Felt like I was just always overly prepared. And so I just adopted it. But I think people have forgotten where it came from and do a good job of
Reminding them.
yeah.
What are some of besides the first aid kit, what are some of the most common safety tips that your followers have maybe found surprising over the years?
Well, my biggest series is the situations when it's best to lie, and that one has ended up in like a whole bunch of national news. It's also been stolen a bunch of times from other people who claim it as their own. And it actually, she did admit to lying to it about it, but she just kept stealing it anyways.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
But that's happened a lot. I say she because she's the one who didn't stop, but a lot of people have done it. But yeah, I think and that was something that I learned from QVC actually was when running into somebody who's asking a question that could seem personal, like, oh, do you live in the neighborhood? You don't know if that person is what their intentions are. So answering in a vague way of being like, oh yeah, I'm just 15 minutes down the road, or yeah, I'm in town, it's super vague. And that was something that QVC taught us, because they were like, you're going to run into people out in the world, out in the grocery store, whatever. They're going to be surprised to see, the QVC host in the area. So how do you respond in a way that doesn't make you seem like a jerk, because you're on
Hmm.
national TV and you do need to build a relationship with your audience? So how do you respond in a way that doesn't make you seem like a jerk while also not compromising your personal safety, because you don't
Right.
know who you're dealing with? So that series came from that. And then I think another and just the permission to lie, they're white lies. They're like not really
Right.
even lying. And then the other thing has been some of the data privacy stuff. Obviously, like the most common tips are, about the strong passwords or not reusing it, like all that kind of stuff that everybody talks about. But some of the other things that I've talked about that no one talks about is how I change my last name when I'm placing orders on stuff. So that
Oh.
way, if somebody, or I'll add a code. Like sometimes, like if you live in an apartment or something, they need to see your last name. So
Hmm.
I'll put like Cathy AZ for Amazon, or, and then Pedrayes, not a big deal. But anyways, so how I change my last name, that way if data is sold, I can track who was the origin. And it
Ooh.
has worked. For example, since this is for parents, the school fundraisers, when they have you sign up for all those magazines and stuff like that, what I learned from my sister's high school is that that company that was raising all these funds for the high school was just selling my data. So when I bought a whole bunch of magazines to support her in her classroom fundraiser, but I put Cathy Magazine Fund. So I knew exactly where I was buying it. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting junk mail to my door. Some magazines, which are local, which I didn't subscribe to, but whatever, that gets a pass. But a lot of and I still get things that say Cathy Mag Fund. And I'm like,
Hmm.
that came from my sister. And I know because I put Mag Fund, like I changed the codes to do that. So I feel like that's a really good tip. And in general, I'm hesitant to give out certain information. So, I use different emails for different things. And I also have different phone numbers. So
Yeah.
I'll use like Google Voice, or, sometimes the carriers also have their own version of a Google Voice. So I'll use those kinds of phone numbers for, grocery store rewards programs, like things I don't care about. And then
Right.
my phone number is for, the doctors, the kids' school,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Wow, that's such a smart tip. I'm definitely going. I'll share that clip for sure because I'm like, oh my gosh, I never even thought to do that because that's how you would track it back. I think that,
Yeah,
um,
it works because they don't clean up their list. And I did a little stint in marketing where I would buy marketing lists.
mhm,
So 1000%,
you know,
I was not going through there. I would double check for duplicates, but I wasn't going through checking everyone's last name and if it made sense and whatever.
right,
Because they don't clean up their lists, and it's not, I mean, that would be a big task to try to do. How are you going to tell me that my last name isn't Mag? Maybe it
right.
is.
Yeah, maybe it is.
So anyways, that's why it works. But it's a good. The only downside is that, once your data is sold, there's nothing. What are you going to do?
There's nothing you can do.
But
Yeah,
exactly. But I did call the company and tell them, like, you can't do this. You didn't have permission to do this. I don't want you doing it again. And are they required to listen? No. But I think if enough people do that and bog down their lines, they'll just be like, all right, we got to
right.
start taking it seriously.
Yeah. And so speaking of safety tips for parents, what do you think some of the most important safety tips parents should be teaching their children are?
Okay. So I think probably the thing that gives parents the most anxiety is the online safety
Hmm.
stuff, because, you can watch your kids playing ball in front of the yard, but you can't watch them playing whatever game on their
Right.
phone. I mean, you should, but, you can't be there 24/7 like the same way you are in the front yard. But I think to calm some of those anxieties, I would say, one, you already know what to do, because literally everything you would teach your kids to do in the real world applies to the digital world. It's the same
Hmm.
world, right? Same strangers, same. It's just we're interacting with strangers, but we also interact with strangers every day in the physical world. That's totally fine. When you ask the grocery clerk where your favorite cereal is or whatever. Um, so I would say that you already know what to do.
Yeah.
So don't freak. And then I would say that, this is the harder part, but it is important to be familiar with the apps that they're on. It's important not to overreact. kids are going to curse. They're going to like, it's all going to happen. Don't like take away the phone. That's not teaching them how to manage their situation. Of course, there's extreme scenarios where say there's crimes involved and whatever. And you're
Right.
like, we need to take away the phone because I need to figure this out. But I'm talking about, just like your average everyday social media, whatever. But you teach your kids, so be familiar with the apps, be familiar with trends, definitely go through the settings and turn things on like two-factor authentication and all of that. You also want to teach your kids how to block on social media, on WhatsApp, on whatever they're on, games, how to mute when they're gaming online, mute the chats, because there's a lot of adults, they use adult language, adult jokes that you don't want your kids, maybe listening to depending on their age. So just mute the chats. No audio. You could also do private servers depending on some of the games. They need to know how to report people, and they need to use those functions because they're going to come across scams. They're going to come across these text messages or DMs that say, "Are you looking for a sugar daddy?" It's a scam. It doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is targeting your child in a, totally. That happens too. That's a different thing. But you have to be able to report these accounts so that, it's not a perfect solution. The apps are and the games are trying to do something about it. So, but if no one
Right.
reports it, kids need to know how to do that. They need to know how to identify misinformation. They need to know how to, see scams, how to fact check things. Like there's a lot of just random stuff on the internet, and it's a whole bunch of information at once. Oh, and the other thing I would say, and this is important, is like, if you have no idea where to start, let's say your kid has already been online for a little bit and they're on social media and you're not even sure what they're into, go through their feeds with them, their feed, their page, because the algorithm is catered to every individual person and it'll show you what it thinks you're most likely to engage with. And so if you're seeing themes of body image, of depression, of I don't know, drugs or something like that, then the kinds of conversations you need to have with your kid. If you're seeing things about somebody making cotton candy or crayons melting, you're good. Like,
Right.
like I don't know how I got fireworks.
Oh, I don't know either. I'm like, oh, you are good.
But I don't know. But anyways, yeah, the algorithm will kind of tell you where your starting place is. And then the other thing is I feel like I could talk about this forever. Like I'm like going on, but you can also reset the algorithm. So if you're seeing your child is getting themes that are not great, sit on their phone once a week and you go through and report not interested. Here's a cooking video. I'm going to engage with it because I want my kid to get more of the cooking video or more of the math homework videos or whatever. You can also teach the algorithm, stop serving me this kind of stuff. And I do that all the time. Right now, it's election season in the US, right? And yes, I like some political videos, but I don't want every single video on my feed to be political. And so when I start noticing that it's too much, I start swiping, I clear my cache, I stop liking, and then I'll start intentionally commenting and liking on other types of videos just for diversity.
Right. I love that tip because I've never, again, heard of it. I mean, for myself too, like I do that for myself, like you said, not probably as often as I should, but I've never heard a parent say they've done that for their child. And I think that's really important for parents to know and just understand, like, you can change it, what they're seeing, but they might not think that. And also to really understand what are they looking at. It can give you insight, that's an amazing tip. Oh my gosh, I'm like, I have so many things I want to share from it, from what you're saying, because
just to add to that, there is a lot of fear in like parenting groups online, like especially Facebook and that kind of stuff. Well, parents will automatically be like, take it away, put spyware, monitor everything. And there are monitoring tools. Use them. They're great,
right.
But it's quick to just, see that and get afraid and, do all of that stuff. But
Right.
that's not really the best way. The best way is to teach them how to work through these problems so that way they can keep doing it in the future because you're not going to be around
Yeah.
forever.
Right.
You're going to be 18. They're going to go off to college. So the goal is to teach them to ride their bike, to drive a car, to manage their online persona. And I mean, to give kids a lot of credit too, I think a lot of like teenagers and stuff like that, they're pretty good. Like their emotional intelligence is way better than it used to be when I was a kid. They're more aware of like bullying and like they seem like a much more positive generation.
Right. Yeah, I
So
think so.
there's bullying too, of course. But to give them credit, I think they can navigate it. We just need to set the like guardrails.
No, and I love that because so much of the stuff, like you just said, I just read The Anxious Generation, which was very eye-opening, but it was all about teens and social media and, a lot of holding off, which is fine, but once they get there, what are we doing? Because and there's not a lot of that of teaching how to teach your kids to navigate with something as simple as that tip of figuring out what their algorithm is.
Yeah,
So,
and that helps for, of course, when they get that first device, the iPads and all of that.
right.
Also, there are transitional devices, right? So you don't have to go get your 8-year-old the iPhone right away. Like
Hmm.
there are, Verizon has the Gizmo watch, which I think is pretty popular for that. That's what we did in my family when
Yeah.
my like old enough to, ride her bike around the neighborhood and call a few people, but not really old enough to have the responsibility of a smartphone. I think there's also some like limited phones. Like I haven't used the Bark phone personally, but I've heard people talk about it. So there are like these transitional devices. I think also the Bark phone might be a little bit older. The Gizmo, like some parents started at like 5 years old. So
Right.
it
Yeah.
kind of, but just know you don't have to immediately jump to the $1,000 smartphone.
Yeah, that's great. So, a lot of your content is, it's obviously very engaging. You have some fun to it as well, but how do you kind of balance the seriousness with the fun that you incorporate?
I guess, well, for one, so I don't typically I don't often reference what inspired the video.
Right.
I kind of just put the information out there of like, this is happening and whatever, without necessarily saying a girl was tragically
Right.
something and now we're going to talk about this, because I also feel like that dynamic is kind of like blaming the parent a little bit, of like, oh, the parent didn't know this thing and that's
Hmm.
why this happened. So, which is, obviously not true. So, I think that helps in like keeping it positive, is that I very rarely will reference this is something that happened in the news unless I have something to add to it. So, for example, I filmed something not long ago where a dog was chewing on a lithium ion battery, like a battery pack, and it started a fire in the home. But 1,000 fires a year happen because of pets. And there's things that you can do, like they turn on stoves accidentally if they're tall enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's little things so in that case, like, yeah, I'm going to reference the lithium ion battery. That's not blaming that's a dog being a dog. But I'm also going to add other information to give
Hmm.
context to that. So I feel like that helps. Like I don't I also don't use any like really like definitive language. Like I don't say things like this is going to save your life. This is survival. This is every parent should do this or whatever. I mean, and maybe sometimes like I talk about freezing your credit, and yeah, I think every fifth parent should probably do that. But but
Yeah.
I'm also more careful about my language. Like I'll be like, this can help do
Hmm.
whatever.
Yeah,
Which
which makes you already feel less
yes,
like, there's so much stuff out there like you need to do this, you need to do that, instead of being like, oh, this will help. Sure, I want to, do it
it
that way.
doesn't count, because it would be
Yeah.
more viral if I started every video saying, parents, be careful. You must do this today. Or
Right.
parents, be aware. That would be much more effective. And there are people who have gotten millions of followers doing exactly that, but it's actually not accurate. And
Right.
it's an element of misinformation.
Yeah. And so how do people figure out the misinformation versus the truth when there is so much social media out there at the palm of your hands? How do they figure out what to believe?
I mean, it's tough. I would say if you're really curious about something to the point where you want to take action, like, you want to buy something or whatever, you want to share it. I mean, you take like the 2 minutes to go on Google and just say, is blah, blah, blah safe? Or,
Right.
here's an example of one where, and this is a scam. But there's scams that get posted on Facebook of like, this is a missing child,
Oh,
the 2-year-old found without the mother, whatever. We need to share this as much as possible to find this thing. Of course, as a parent, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to share this. But if you pause for a moment and think, well, this isn't being shared by the police department, there's no information about where this is happening, and then you go to Google and maybe take the name that may have been in the thing and be like, is this child missing? Because sometimes they will use real names of missing children who have been found in a completely different state. So
mm,
if you just take that moment to say, like, wait, before I share this, is this real? Usually that pause will help you avoid a lot of misinformation type stuff or scams. but sometimes they're also using partial information. So, for example, this data breach that just happened, where they're saying 2.9 billion uh, Americans and Canadians and stuff like that were affected. Every single headline in the news is saying nearly every American's social security number may have been breached or whatever,
Right.
which, yes, that's accurate. But it's not including the fact that, some of it doesn't include that. Some of it is email, some of it is phone, but that's not going to get that's too complicated. That's not going to get the clicks. So they're going to say your social security number is breached because that's what's going to get you to pay
Yeah, the
attention. And
scariest, yeah.
then, yeah, and it is part of it. It is affecting billions of people, but
Not
it's a
as
because I worked in journalism, like it's a weird situation because unfortunately we are, the algorithm is in charge of what information we're seeing, and the algorithm is in charge of what information we're seeing, and if we don't present it in a way that makes people pay attention, then
right,
nobody sees it.
right. All right, you've given us so much wonderful information. What before we kind of wrap it up, what's next for you in terms of projects or content that you can share with us?
Well, I have a lot of this back to school data privacy stuff that I'm
Yeah.
working on right now. But I just keep posting. You know what I'm not good at is reposting like old information that I've
Hmm.
shared, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to get better at that, because like the tips don't go away.
Right.
So I don't know, but there's always new things that are happening. I feel like you come to me when you want information, and I'm always open to requests. But it's like child safety, online safety, obviously the digital safety stuff. And I do talk about fire safety as well, not as much, but sometimes there's like some interesting things that happen like in the news with those dogs that I
Yeah.
talked about, where I'm like, oh, I happen to know about this because I have a relationship with the Fire Safety Research Institute. So yeah,
That's
it's a
awesome.
I just feel like it's a lot of interesting information, and honestly it changes every day.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And um I like you're never going to run out of things that you can share, which is great. There's always going to be something new. Like you were not predicting the data breach, so then you're like, oh, all right, now we have more stuff, to not that that's
Yeah.
necessarily a good thing, but it's the
Well,
truth.
no, but it's not, but it is, because it's a good reminder of like the types of things that we need to be doing. But also, it's interesting because when I first started, I thought I was only going to have 12 videos. I started
Right.
interviewing my friends who, worked for NSA, who worked for attorney generals and stuff like that. And I was like, what are the kinds of things you were seeing at work and whatever? And what are some tips that you would share with people? And I was talking to detectives, like, what are some things you would tell people? And I had come up with a list of 12 videos. And I said, okay, these are going to be my 12 videos. And then I don't know what I'm going to post anymore.
Right.
And it's been 3.5 years since I came up with that list of 12
Oh
videos.
my
And
gosh,
now
that's
those
amazing.
12 videos became, I don't know, at least 1,000. So,
Wow. So cool.
so yeah, so it really does change all the time. But I think what's important about my page is that I'm pretty like ethical about
Right.
the way I present it. It's because I have that background in journalism that
Yeah. That you know
I'm
how to
like,
word things in a positive
yeah,
way.
and I think more so than maybe even some media outlets do, like
Yeah.
clickbait, but like I took those classes and I took it to heart.
I love your page. I mean, I really am so glad that we crossed paths because you've taught me so many things. And to kind of go back to when you were saying the one about sharing your personal information, that's what I like with a stranger. I definitely commented on that. I'm like the people pleaser in me. I'm always like, oh yeah, but also I would ask people those questions like out of no ill intent, just being like, oh, do you live around here? Oh, what do just from being social, socially
Same.
outgoing. And so that's when I watched your video, I was like, oh my God, I would probably answer all of these questions with the truth.
1,000%. And obviously context matters, right? Like if you're
Right,
standing outside of your kid's classroom pickup room and the
right.
parent there is like, oh, do you live in they're probably asking because they want to do a play date or
Yeah,
something, right? Like,
yeah,
the context matters, but and that's why I'll say the creepy stranger, even though strangers are not necessarily creepy. But I
right.
just use that as a way to reference like that gut feeling that you get, because
Yeah,
it's a gray area. There's no
right.
there's no
There's
black
no,
and white of like you want this situation and not in this.
yeah, oh my gosh. All
They
right.
talk to chains and
Yeah, I
bars.
know. My husband always like makes fun of me because he's like, you could literally like talk to a wall and like become friends with it. And he's the total
Yeah,
opposite of me. He's like, does not want to talk to anybody. But I guess that's why it works so well. But
yeah. No,
yeah, I
I
ask
will always,
everyone.
if you
Uh,
blink for too long in my direction, I'm talking.
You're like, hi, how are you? Oh my gosh. All
Yeah.
right. Well, is there any information or insight maybe that we didn't cover before we kind of wrap it up?
I feel like I covered a lot and maybe too much too quickly, but
No.
but I always check my DMs. So if
Yeah.
there's any questions or something wasn't clear, DM me. I literally check. I am up to date on every DM. So there's that, or email or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think I covered a lot.
You did. I mean, you taught me a lot in this, segment. So again, one of the amazing things I love about interviewing people is just like I leave being more knowledgeable, so I know my listeners will too. So all right, that's going to bring us to the end of another episode of The Running Wine Mom. Cathy, your practical advice and insights on everyday safety and security have been more than valuable to everyone listening. It's clear why you were started off as TikTok's mom friend and how your background and experiences have shaped your content. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it. You can follow me on Instagram at the running wine mom _. And Cathy, where can the listeners find you?
Well, you follow me so they can look through your following list.
Yeah,
Just to,
yes.
but also just Cathy Pedrayes on every Cathy with a C. Cathy with
Okay.
a C, Pedrayes with a P. Cathy P will pop up on everything, and just look for the blue dress.
Perfect. I will link all of that as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, keep your safety in check, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers, and I will be back next Tuesday.